and the kids are going to bed. So it's 8:00 at night. I'm standing at the top of my stairs watching my kids brush their teeth. And all of a sudden my heart starts going crazy. So I said to my wife, something's not right. So I had to go. I went and I lay down, and she kind of put her hand on my chest and kind of listened to my heart. And she says, your heart's beating very fast, and there's 3 beats, and the third one's a boom. I can feel it and I can hear it. Yeah. So it was pretty crazy. It's pretty intense.
It's scary.
So again, my mom being a nurse wasn't too far down the road. So we called my mom and said, Bill's having an issue, come on over. So my mom came by, and I'll never forget the word. She put her hand on my wrist, took my pulse, and she said, quote unquote, he's fast, irregular, and thready. He needs to go to the ER right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sounds of Health, where every week we discover inspiring stories, meet incredible people, and share valuable resources to help you to boost your physical, emotional, and financial well-being. I'm so excited today to welcome our guest, one of my very good friends, and also the founder and managing partner of Nutmeg Advisory Group, Bill Giaquinto. Bill has been a huge help to me in getting my business started, and I'm so happy to have him on the show to hear about his business and also about his own personal health journey. I think you guys are going to get a lot out of this episode. I forgot to introduce myself to anybody that's just joining us on this episode. I'm Dave MacNiven, and if you are finding us because you are here to listen to Bill, please go back and listen to some of our prior episodes. We've had some really amazing guests, and we love it when you like, subscribe, and share us far and wide. So thank you all for continuing to support us. And Bill, welcome to Sounds of Health.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming. So I think you're the first one in our office that's now come out on the show. So that's exciting.
Yeah, excited to be here. It should be fun.
Yeah, excellent. So Bill, usually what we do to get started is we just try and let our audience get to know you. So tell us a little bit about where you're from and what that path that you were on led you to what you're doing today.
So I grew up in Hamden, Connecticut. Obviously knew you since you were a kid, Scott, playing baseball. So I played baseball, went to Notre Dame High School in West Haven, continued on. I went to Clark University up in Worcester, Mass. So up at Clark, I really actually started, believe it or not, pre-med.
Did you really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. So my mom's a nurse, my sister's a nurse, and I always liked kids, so I thought I was actually going to be a pediatrician. So freshman year, I was playing baseball, and I also had, my advisor told me to do chem and biology in the same semester, and they both had 4-hour labs. So it was not a good situation to start. And I really didn't like sitting in kind of just a hall and listening to professors. I'm more outgoing. I want to be more involved in it. So I ended up changing over to a management major, which, it was a lot of fun, smaller classes, more interactive. So I did that, and I changed over, and it really wasn't until my senior year in college, I decided I'm going to do an internship, and I did one at Smith Barney up in Worcester, Mass. And it was really there. I actually was the technology liaison. So basically, I learned the planning software. I was teaching the advisors how to use it. And that's where I really got an interest. And I took an investments course my senior year as well. And I said, I really like this. I kind of enjoy it. So when I came back, I knew I wanted to come back home, especially getting into this business, because you want to be around, family, friends, trying to build it and grow. Yeah. So I came back, and Smith Barney in New Haven wanted me, but they didn't have any room. But they knew I knew the programs. They said, your resume is right on top. So I went with a bunch of other companies, and they were all looking for someone with sales experience. And here I am, this young kid out of college, didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, and trying to start off. And so I took a chance, and I said, I'm just going to go on my own. And there was 2 young guys that I knew that said, hey, you can come in and kind of start your own business, your own practice. And that's kind of the road I went with. I just started my own, and luckily enough, here I am today.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat, first job out of college.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
When you switched into management, was management like a business major? Like what was management?
Yeah, so it's interesting at Clark, they didn't have like finance, economics. It was all wrapped in under management.
Okay.
So I took econ, finance, all those classes, which looking back now, it's great because, owning a business, I have to know the management part of it, having employees and things like that. So
absolutely,
it worked out great.
That's awesome. So when you first started out, did you open your own shop right away?
No. So when I first started, I started with a couple guys out in Guilford, Connecticut.
Okay.
So it was actually a friend of my in-laws said, hey, he has some young guys in there. So I was building my own practice, but I was in an office, just kind of like here, where I was under other people. And then they ended up leaving, and I went to another guy I worked under, again, in his office, but building my own practice.
Gotcha. Yeah.
For a few years. And then actually the building we're in now came up, and a partner of mine, Vinny Rascati, and I said, hey, we were both outgrowing the space that we're in.
Yeah.
We said, let's kind of go off and kind of do our own thing. And that's how we ended up here. And I've been here for probably 12 years now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you were just telling us before we started the podcast that we're coming up on your 25th anniversary in business.
September 20th, so 4 days is actually the 25th anniversary. 25 years.
That's unbelievable. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's like a huge milestone.
Yeah.
I mean, most people don't even stay in jobs that long, much less have their own business.
Right. Yeah. It's like I said, it's been a long yet rewarding, journey so far. So
yeah, that's great. And you were working with my cousin Vinny, so it's funny
Like
that
the
there's
movie,
that.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's that connection as well.
Yeah.
So that's great. And you started out in this building just renting. You and Vinny were renting on the second floor, right?
Yeah. So Vinny and I were renting on the second floor, and there was a dentist that was on the first floor that was down there since the 70s, and he actually ended up passing away. And his wife actually took over the practice and ended up selling in the practice and was going to sell the building. And she came to me and said, hey, before I put this out there, I just want to come to you first. Do you have any interest in buying the building? And I actually had spoke with her husband years before. So, because when I renewed my lease, I asked him if he had an interest. He said, I don't right now, but you'll be the first person I come to. And then he passed away. So I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Like, now his wife, I don't know if his wife knew that story, but she came to me and said, hey, do you have an interest in buying the building? I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I talked to Scott, my partner, and said, hey, do you want to go on this together? And he said, sure. And so I want to say it's like 7 years ago now we bought the building.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I rented here for 9 years and then purchased it. So.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you were a big part of me opening my business and going independent, but also getting Scott to come over. So Scott Burney, your business partner, also good friends of ours. Tell me a little bit about, what the impetus for you behind helping people to get on their feet and launch their own business was, because I know you kind of had some experience with that yourself, right?
Yeah. So I think first it goes back to my childhood and just the way I was raised. And my dad always said, listen, if you do the right thing, things will come back tenfold. So my thing was like, hey, treat people right, do the right thing, and you'll be rewarded for it. So I kind of always lived with that mentality. So when I first started in the business, I had guys that basically both offices that I worked in, basically their hands were in my pocket. I just felt like no matter what I did, they were just trying to make money off me. And I was just like a number of them. And so it didn't feel great. I didn't like that feeling.
Yeah. I don't think anybody would.
Yeah, no, it's not a great feeling at all. So having gone through that myself, I always said, I'm never going to be like that. I said, I want to have my own business one day, or my own building, people working with me, but I want to help people. I want to help them succeed. It's hard especially when I was just starting and what I was making because of what they were taking. I'm like, how do you live off this? And two of the younger guys that I was with was like, you got to let this guy make as much as he can to start. Otherwise, he's not going to survive in the business.
Absolutely.
So just from learning from that experience, I said, I want to make sure that when I have people work with me, I want to help them get started. I want to give them everything I can. And I want to be around successful people and see them succeed. Yeah. So I get, the joy I get out of it is seeing people start off in, it's funny, most people, and maybe it's just humans the way we are, they have to have that structure of having someone tell them what to do, have to have a boss. Yeah. It's very hard to be an entrepreneur and kind of do things on your own. And I know how hard that is because I went through that struggle. I used to wake up 3 a.m. and, I'm like, I'm unemployed. I obviously had a job, I'm working, but I'm like, okay, what do I do tomorrow? Like I always had to continue to keep evolving, keep working. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's motivation. You don't have to be motivated. You have to have some motivation, but it's more discipline.
Like a work ethic.
Yeah, you can just get up and not do anything. So you have to have the discipline to do it. So I always said, I just want to help people and teach them kind of what I went through and give them everything they can, give them all the tools they can to get started and help them kind of get off the ground and be successful. And that's how, I wanted to surround myself with people like that.
Yeah, well, you've certainly done that. I mean, the culture you've created here in this building is really phenomenal. And I probably never would have gone independent and started my own shop without you and Scott kind of pushing me and telling me that it was going to be okay. I can still remember, like, I went to you, I went to him, and you and I were talking about those sleepless nights, right? Like when you're considering making such a big jump. I had 2 kids. I didn't want to disrupt their lifestyle. And it was really scary. But you helped to kind of show me that that's possible. And now I realize I probably could have done it on my own. I'm fully capable, but man, it's been so great having you and Scott and the group here at Nutmeg Advisory Group to be a support system.
Yeah. And honestly, Dave, it's like what I did obviously was difficult.
Yeah.
I give you much more credit than what I went through, because I think honestly your situation was a lot more difficult, right?
Sure,
you had kids, you're older. When I did it, I was right out of college. My wife, Megan, had a job, so I didn't have to actually earn much in the very beginning. So it was easy for me to get jump started, but doing it the way you did it, like I give you a lot of credit. It was a lot of hard work, and you're doing tremendous yourself. So, give yourself the credit too. I appreciate the things you're saying, but you had to do it, right? So I can say, hey, this is a good idea, but you made that jump. And I think, as you know now, it's so much more rewarding.
Absolutely.
Being in control of what you do.
Probably the best decision I've ever made on a professional level.
Right.
To be able to and like we've talked about, there are challenges every year in our businesses. Like you're constantly adapting and figuring things out, but you're doing it for yourself and you're doing it for your family and for your clients. That's the other thing I've always been really impressed about with you and the culture you've created is just how you put people first. And that was always an important thing to me as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the name of the game. Like I said, I've always, whether it's being a pediatrician in helping kids who are sick, I guess I've always wanted to help people. And that's what I do, what I'm doing today, whether it's having guys like you in the office and helping people in that sense, or, helping my clients every day. And it is, you're right. There's different challenges, different obstacles. And that's what I love about it. It's a different challenge every day. I always say it's like a puzzle. It's just getting those pieces and kind of putting things, together. So it's interesting. And like I said, it's hard to find something that you're passionate about and that you love. Very few people find that in their job.
Yeah.
But like I said, I found that I'm fortunate. I feel happy that I did, and it's something I love to do.
Yeah. Well, it definitely shows. So thank you for all of that. So one of the reasons why you're on the show today, this podcast is definitely all about helping people to improve their health physically, emotionally, and financially. So down the road, I want to bring you on and talk about lots of different things, because I think, as a society, we are not educated fully financially. Like when we're going through school, there's things we just don't learn unless we do it on our own. But today, what we're really focusing on is your own personal health journey, which I appreciate you coming on and kind of being open about. So tell us a little bit about, what had happened and what you're still working through now.
Sure. So I was 36 years old. So I'm 47 now. So it was 11 years ago. I had gotten up one morning. And none of this was out of the ordinary. It's kind of what I used to do every day. Yeah. I would had a cup of coffee. I took a pre-energy drink. I exercised, had another cup of coffee. I went to the office, go see a client. My first appointment, do you want a cup of coffee? Sure. So I had 3 cups of coffee. Again, nothing out of the ordinary. That was my normal routine. Yeah. I went through the day, and at the end of the day, it was actually my partner, Scott. His father-in-law was in, and I was working with him. He said, you want to go have a quick beer before you go home? So I said, sure. So we went out. I had 1 beer, went home. The kids were young. I had dinner with the family, and the kids are going to bed. So it's 8 o'clock at night. I'm standing at the top of my stairs watching my kids brush their teeth. And all of a sudden, my heart starts going crazy. So I said to my wife, something's not right. So I had to go. I went and I lay down, and she kind of put her hand on my chest and kind of listened to my heart. And she says, your heart's beating very fast, and there's 3 beats, and the third one's a boom. I can feel it, and I can hear it. Yeah. So it was pretty crazy. It's pretty intense.
It's scary.
So again, my mom being a nurse wasn't too far down the road. So we called my mom and said, Bill's having an issue. Come on over. So my mom came by, and I'll never forget the word. She put her hand on my wrist, took my pulse, and she said, quote unquote, he's fast, irregular, and thready. He needs to go to the ER right now. Wow. So I was like, well, what's going on? So go down to the emergency room. They hooked me up, and I was an AFib. So atrial fibrillation, which is an irregular heartbeat. Yeah. Again, it's not life-threatening. It's nothing crazy. It just happened to be this random episode of AFib I had. Right. It could be caffeine's a trigger, alcohol's a trigger. So obviously that might have had something to do with it that day. So they essentially put me to sleep. They paddle me, hit you with the shocks, which kind of puts you back into normal rhythm. And 20 minutes later, I was sent home. It was like the craziest thing.
That is crazy.
And they said, you should follow up with a cardiologist. So I was like, what was that all about? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
So I go for a follow-up with a cardiologist. They did an echo and an MRI, and I get a call from the nurse. And she said, doctor says your heart looks great. Everything is good, except your ascending aorta is slightly dilated. I'm like, what does that mean? They think you should go see a surgeon. I was like, what? I don't understand what's going on. So I go to a follow-up, I go see a surgeon, and he tells me that my ascending aorta, which is basically, think about it as like the tube that comes out of your heart, was slightly dilated, which is the beginning of an aortic aneurysm. So it was a pretty wild like week that I went through, like having that all happen. So as this was happening, I called my mom right after I got off the phone with the doctor. And I said to my mom, I said, thank God that happened, that AFib attack. I said, it was a blessing in disguise. Someone was looking out for me.
Absolutely.
So it was funny. Growing up, my dad, was very religious, went to church every Sunday, would take us to church. My mom, I'm not sure if she's an atheist or what, but never went to church, never talked about anything. So after this all happened, we go to my daughter's pre-K graduation. So we're sitting there before the graduation starts. My mom says, can I talk with you? I said, sure, what's up? So she said, quote unquote, I was talking to your grandmother. Now, my grandmother had died a year before, and she had AFib almost the entire end of her life.
Okay.
So she said, I was talking with your grandmother, and I told her to give us a sign that you're looking out for us. She goes, 3 days later, you went into AFib. She goes, so I started saying to her, why would you do that? Why do you hate me? You always said Billy was your favorite. Why would you do that to him?
Yeah.
And she goes, a week later, you call me and say, thank God that happened as a blessing in disguise. Someone was looking out for you.
That's incredible.
So it was like, every time I still say it, like,
I'm getting chills.
It was kind of wild, just especially coming from her, because that's not from her. It's totally out of the ordinary.
Yep.
So that was it. So I remember I go and see the surgeon, and he basically said, and I guess the easiest way to think of it is like a garden hose, when a garden hose gets a bubble in it. So essentially what happens in my aorta, it's a bubble that gets bigger and bigger.
Right.
And then they said eventually it either dissects, which means it tears. And he said, if that happens, it feels like someone has a sharp knife and they're stabbing you between your shoulder blades. I'm like, well, I don't want to feel that.
Yeah.
And then he said, if it ruptures, it feels like a truck is physically parked on your chest. And I'm like, well, I don't want to feel that
feeling,
either.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't want to feel either one of those.
Yeah.
So essentially what they did was they just, they had to monitor it I was going every 6 months just to see, how it was growing and things like that. So for the last 11 years, I was monitored with it.
Yep.
So it was kind of a moment where it's like, wow, what's going on? What's happening? And, I could have felt bad. Why me? All of that.
Right.
But I just basically, kind of took it as, hey, it is what it is. The toughest part of the whole thing, especially the first 6 months when it happened, was it was such a mind screw. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I don't know if people know about aneurysms, those are what they call the widowmaker.
Yeah.
Right. There's no signs, there's no symptoms until something happens, and then 90% don't survive. So I know I have this thing in me, and I'm like, for the first 6 months, I'm like, oh my God, I feel something in my chest. And then I kind of burp. I'm like, all right, it's just gas. Like I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
But that, again, there's no symptoms. So every time I would feel something, like
you'd be nervous.
I'd be super nervous.
Yeah.
So, the biggest question people would ask is like, well, why don't they fix it then? And everything was kind of like a risk reward. It's like, okay, there was actually more of a chance of something happening if I had the surgery to fix it than there would be if they just left it alone and monitored to a certain size. So they kind of monitor you until, it gets to a size where they say, okay, now there's more of a risk of leaving it alone. We want to fix this before something, essentially something bad happens. So so I was going every 6 months when they first found it, and then I was going, every year. And it's one of those things, not just this, everything with life, everything's a balance. Like you have to have balance in life. So I could have went, again, they say caffeine's a trigger, alcohol is a trigger. So, I could have just said, hey, I'm never on caffeine again, I'm never having alcohol, and could have just cut everything out. But, what kind of a life, not that it's a bad life, but I did. I cut caffeine out. I haven't had caffeine probably in 6 or 7 years now.
Oh, wow.
I still have drinks here and there, but for the most part, I was essentially trying to say, okay, I have this, I'm gonna have to live with it. I kind of get through it. And I did for years, and I did go through a good stretch where I really wasn't thinking about it much. I'm like, I'm in good hands and things. So that was, it's kind of a wild ride, a wild episode.
It's incredible. I mean, when I think about when that happened, I mean, with our friend group, I can still remember thinking, Billy, really? Like if you lined up all of us against a wall and you said, which person is going to have this issue? You're one of the last people that I would have chosen. When that did happen, I was like, wow, that's so amazing. Like, it's just crazy. And it just goes to show you that you just never know. And that it's important to kind of prepare for the eventualities of life. And, obviously the way that you look at things is really inspiring, and the way that you don't look at it as a weakness and it's more of a strength. That's really been amazing as well. I never heard the side of the story. You've told me the story a few times, but I've never heard your mom and grandmother part of it. And that's really amazing too. Like that, like I said, that gives me chills.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, every time I tell that, it still gives me chills just knowing that, hey, just coming from my mom saying it was so out of left field. I was like, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it really is. Now you have experienced AFib since then too, right?
So I experienced AFib since that initial one.
Yeah.
I've probably experienced it 6 times.
Okay.
So one of the things they did, so an aneurysm is basically caused, it's actually genetic. It's caused by high blood pressure over a long period of time, which I've never had, or it's a connective tissue disorder, so it's genetic. So when I found out I had it, my kids each have a 50-50 chance of having it. So what was interesting is no one in my family had one. So I'm like, how does this happen? Like if it's genetic, why am I the first one to have it? 5 years after they found mine, they find my mom has one.
Oh, wow.
So she's actually being monitored now. So it's definitely, it's genetics. And then my brother and sister, again, now they have a 50-50 chance. So they had to go get checked. So yeah, it was pretty wild. So I had AFib a few times. So one of the things I had when they found this is because it's a connective tissue disorder, they sent me for genetic testing.
Okay.
And the doctor said, hey, if they don't find anything, it just means they can't look for all the genes. It just means they didn't find it. You have something. We just don't, if they don't find it, they'll find it later and I'll have to do it again.
Right.
So in the initial genetic testing, they found I actually have a mild mutation in a gene that causes AFib.
Okay.
So I was actually prone to AFib. So I had this happen and I tried to figure out what is throwing me in AFib. So I went to a phase, I'm like, I'm just gonna have a ton of caffeine, see if this throws me into it. Nothing. I'm gonna have a bunch of alcohol, see if that throws me into it. Nothing. They say wine, can you add wine? I'm like, what is, what's doing it to me? And I had a spurt where, I want to say it was like a 6 to 8 month period where I had it 3 times. So I'm like, why is this happening? Like, what was the common denominator in those 3 times?
Right.
Is there something in there? So, and again, I was trying to figure this out. Like, what is doing this to me? Why is this happening? And the only thing I thought of, I was like, and at one point I was doing keto. So I was having like those zero drinks, the stuff with no sugar, but it's all artificial sweetener.
Right.
And I'm like, all 3 times I've had artificial sweetener. I'm like, I'm wondering if that's going to be it. And I read it excites your electrical system. So I actually Googled it. I'm like, hey, is there a connection? I found a guy that was going into AFib once a month. He cut out artificial sweetener. He said it's been 8 months. I haven't had AFib once.
Wow.
So I'm like, all right, I'm cutting it out. So I cut out artificial sweetener. I probably went almost 2 to 3 years and didn't have an AFib episode. I'm like,
that's incredible.
I went to my doctor like that. Yep, it's kind of, they're just starting to do studies on it now. So I had a really good run. And then actually last August, so just about a year ago, and I was always looking for artificial sweeteners and drinks and stuff. And I wasn't thinking, for the most part, I wasn't thinking foods. So last August, I was having a powder and it said sugar-free.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking anything of it. So that day I had a sugar-free powder and then I had 2 like protein bars. And that afternoon I felt jittery and I said, I don't feel right. Something's not right. And I'm like,
right.
And I looked at the ingredients. I saw artificial sweetener in both the bars and the powder. I'm like, and I wasn't thinking sugar-free. It's probably, artificial. Right. And I said, I hope this doesn't throw me into AFib. And I remember saying it to myself that afternoon. The next day, I'm on the golf course. I'm on the 4th hole. I bend down to read a putt. And as soon as I bent down, I'm like, whoa. And I stood up. I'm like, here I am in an AFib. Yeah. So again, go down to the ER, get me out of AFib. And again, haven't touched artificial sweetener since then. It's been a little over a year again and nothing. Right. So just that one mix up of having it, threw me into it again. So I'm convinced like that's my trigger because everyone has a trigger.
It makes sense.
So yeah.
So I mean, it's awesome too that you were just like clear enough to kind of test these things. Like a lot of people wait for their doctor to tell them what to do. Like many times, people I talk to, they're just like, well, the doctor's going to tell me what to do. But in this case, you're really out there kind of testing things, seeing how they affect you. And you're the one who discovers this artificial sweetener. And then you bring it to your doctor. It just goes to show you how important it is to be your own advocate for your health as well.
Yeah, I think you have to, especially these days, you have to be your own advocate. I'm also the type that's very proactive. So if anything's going on, I try and get ahead of it. And actually, my wife's actually opposite. She'll let things go until the last minute. But I've had back issues before, and I've had issues, times where I can't get off the floor for a day or two, like way back in the day. And now I know, like I can feel a little twinge in my lower back. I'm like, now I'm going to do physical therapy. Now I'm going to get things, straightened out. And again, I haven't had, knock on wood, haven't had a back issue because I'm proactive about it as opposed to, it'll go away. And then now all of a sudden you have a bigger issue. So I've always been like that with my health. I always I'm kind of in tune with my body. I feel what's going on. But I guess I always look for answers too. Like, hey, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest part is, and I kind of look at life like this, they said, when they said high blood pressure over a long period of time, I've always had low blood pressure. And one of the guys I used to work with used to joke, he's like, that's because you don't care about anything. And, I kind of laughed, and he, obviously he was joking, but I focus on things that I can control.
Yeah.
So if I can't control it, I'm not going to worry about it. Like, I know people get anxiety, they get nervous, and I'm like, focus on the things you can control, because the things that you can't, you can't control. And so I can control like what I was eating. So is there something I can control that can make this not happen anymore? And that's kind of the way I always look at things, is like focus on what I can control and worry about that stuff. And the rest, there's nothing I can do, so I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great mindset to have and to be in. I'm someone who also has always had low blood pressure and never really had any health issues in that way. But I did suffer from anxiety. Like there are times in my life when I would have high anxiety. And even today, like there are moments that I will, and it's not rational. And I realized I was the same way. I'm like, what is causing this? Because it's not even about necessarily the stress I'm under, because I handle stress pretty well. I really do try to focus on what I can control and what I can't. But what I realized, it's a lot that has to do with nutrition and exercise.
Yeah.
And that's what was doing it to me.
Yep.
If my nutrition is not well at that time, or I'm not exercising, I'm not active, then anxiety has more control over me.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why it's you have to focus on what you can. And I think a lot of it is the way you frame things, right? You have to look at the bright side of it. So part of it is I'm scheduled I'm actually having my surgery December 2nd, so in 2 months.
Right.
Again, it's open heart surgery. It's a kind of everyday type of surgery, but again, it's open heart, so you get nervous about those things.
Of course.
So with the surgery, one of the things they say is a lot of times, because it's a connective tissue disorder, when you get the aneurysm, your valve eventually goes too. So when they said they were going to have to do this, the doctor that was following me for 11 years doesn't do surgery anymore, but he's been following me, and he was recommending doing my valve at the same time. Mm-hmm. He says, because we want to go in there once. And that
I just lost sound. We're back?
We're back. So,
okay.
So he said, we want to go in there once, and that's it. You don't want to go in there a second time because it's more dangerous. So in my mind, I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to do the valve at the same time, get it done once, and be done with it. The downside of that is you're on Coumadin the rest of your life. So again, my mindset was like, hey, I'm sure that over the next 10, 15 years, I'll come up with a better drug. So, hopefully that'll be an answer. I was kind of looking at the bright side of it.
Right.
So when I actually go see the surgeon that's doing the surgery, he was recommending that what they could do now is they can preserve the valve. So if your valve's in good shape, mm-hmm. they kind of preserve and they keep it. So the older doctor was saying, well, when they preserve it, he said 10% of the time it fails. And of that 10%, 50% fail in the first year, the other 50 fail over the next 10 years. So mm-hmm. I'm like, that doesn't sound great. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm just going to have this thing replaced.
Right.
So when I'm talking to the younger surgeon, he's saying, I'd recommend that you have it preserved. And he said, if there's one wrinkle, it's coming out. Like, it has to be absolutely perfect and we'll preserve it. So I said, well, what about this 10%? Again, I'm always asking questions. I always want to learn. Right. I said, well, what about this 10%? He goes, that's because people are having a save valves that we shouldn't save. So he's like, people would be like, we don't want to be on Coumadin, so save it. So he's like, that number is skewed. Yeah. So I really, really liked him. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to trust him, and I'm not going to find out till I wake up whether they preserved it. But I'm like, hey, if you can keep it, if your body likes natural blood flow. He's also like, you're 47 years old. You don't want to be on Coumadin the rest of your life. That's not a great lifestyle either. So my daughter is a neuroscience major. So she's, into the medical stuff. And she did a little research and she talked to my wife, didn't tell me, but told my wife, looked it up and says, actually and again, who knows if this study's correct, but it's a study she saw that said So if let's say someone's life expectancy is 80 years old and they have their valve replaced at 70, it has very little significance on their life expectancy. Maybe knocks a year off.
Yeah, that makes
But it
sense.
says the younger you are when you have it, like for example, if you're in your 40s, mm-hmm. it has a significance. So maybe it takes 5 years off your life. So now maybe your life expectancy becomes 75 instead of 80.
Right.
So my daughter was very nervous about it and things like that. And again, when she first told me, first thing that sets in is fear and why this isn't right. But then again, I have to kind of balance things and say, okay, how am I going to frame this? How am I going to look at it?
Yeah.
And I looked at it as, hey, I'm lucky that they found this thing because my life expectancy might be 50. It could essentially be 3 years. I would have been gone if they never found this.
Right.
So even if this changes my life expectancy to be 75, I look at it as, hey, I gained 25 years, not I'm going to lose 5 because of this. So again, it's all the way you look at things, right? So you just got to look on the right side. I look at, hey, I'm lucky I'm gaining 25 years as opposed to, hey, I may lose 5 because I have to have this this done. So
yeah, I mean, that's a great way to look at it. And I think it's right on. I mean, tomorrow's not guaranteed to any of us.
Right.
Like, everything can be different tomorrow, no matter what you're going through.
Yeah.
So when you are faced with these health challenges or some other type of challenge, having that mindset really helps.
Yeah. And the biggest, I want to say the biggest mindset, the biggest wake up call to me, going back to the business and starting the business and having a business. And again, obviously you want to take care of your family, your clients. Is I was 36 years old. I had no succession plan.
Right.
So actually a company I was with back then, a few years later, actually had me kind of do an open mic like this, where kind of tell my story.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people, that business owners, that basically they're young, they're healthy, successful. It doesn't matter. Like, this can happen to anyone.
Right.
And most of them don't have a succession plan. So, I was in a situation where I could have left my family, my wife, my children, my clients in a very bad position, because I didn't have anyone to take over the business or take care of things should something happen. Because again, you're young, healthy, you don't think of that stuff.
You're 36 years old.
Yeah, people think of succession planning as retirement. I'm like, well, I got a long time. I have years until I retire. I'm not worried about it. But they don't think about the death and disability part, that, hey, something could happen any given day. And what happens to what I build and my clients and the people, that I'm leaving behind, I have to make sure that I take care of them.
So important. I mean, it's such a big part of being a business owner, not only for the part that affects your family, but like you're saying, your clients as well, to have them in good hands if something, God forbid, were to happen.
Right.
Yeah. So that's so super important. We could probably do an entire episode just on things like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's amazing that, just the experience that you've had. And I appreciate you coming on and being so open with our audience about all of it. Wishing you all the best for December 2nd. And, I have nothing but positive thoughts for you, obviously. So, and I just want to thank you again for all of the generosity and your time that you've spent with me to help me to be successful, and for your friendship. It's just been really amazing being here and being your friend. So I appreciate all of that.
Yeah, and it's been been amazing to watch you come in, start from the beginning, see what you've built, what you've grown, and like I said, it's impressive. You have a very hard, extreme work ethic, and it's inspiring to watch. It's inspiring to see. So
I appreciate that.
Seeing you every day, I appreciate having you around here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. So we have this kind of thing that we do to close out every episode. I feel like so much of this episode can kind of be dissected for all the various hacks and tips we've given people in it. But do you have something maybe that stands out that you're practicing in your own life that helps you to increase your physical, emotional, or financial well-being that maybe the audience would help them to hear?
I would probably say, from a physical standpoint, I was always, playing sports and had fun doing things. And I love golf, so I play a lot of golf. And I'm realizing that the older I get, the tighter your body gets. And I can notice it. So I'm a decent golfer, and I have some very bad rounds. And obviously golf is hard, but what I notice, the rounds where I'm not playing well, it's because my body isn't moving the way that I want it to. So I notice when I'm working out and I'm stretching, and I would say the tip is stretch as much as you can, not every day, but maybe every other day.
Yeah.
But I notice when I stretch and my body's limber, I can do the things, I can move my body the way I want to. I'm much happier. I feel much better.
Yeah.
But again, if I have a couple of days where, hey, I have to go out, or if I have a month where things are tough and I don't get to exercise, I have a couple of drinks, my body instantly tightens up, where I have a stiff back, tight neck, and I can't function and move the way I want to.
Right.
So, and I've done yoga in the past, which has been great. So I would just say, just keeping your body stretched, because things tend to tighten up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're getting older, and as you get older, that happens.
Yeah, totally. And you have those moments, like you were saying, throwing your back out. One time in my life, I've thrown my back out, and it was when we were pregnant with our second, with Lucas, and Jack was little, and he was in his high chair. I mean, I was young at this point. I was in my 30s, and I just went and grabbed him and picked him up, and something went out in my back. And I, like you were saying, I was on the floor for days. I couldn't move, and I had this second child on the way. And how important it is. I mean, movement is so important to good health.
Yeah. I've had the same thing. I've had one where, and it's not, you actually do something, it doesn't happen then, it happens 2 days later.
Right. Yeah.
I had the same thing. I was getting up from the kitchen table, and I stood up, I'm like, oh, what happened? I couldn't move. It's you don't realize how debilitating it is until it happens to you. If your back goes out, you can't do anything. It's crazy. It's hard to understand unless it actually happens to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then once it does, like you were saying, now you can kind of be aware of the symptom of it, or kind of getting ahead of it, doing PT, doing the stretching.
Yeah.
But that's a really good tip, is just, do you actually have a stretching routine that you do?
I don't have, I wouldn't say have a stretching routine. It just depends on the day. I said, a lot of times part of it is when I exercise. So obviously that's a natural, natural movement too. So I could say stretching, but also just keeping your body moving, but I don't have anything in particular that I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So,
well, that's a great tip for anybody. So thank you for that one as well.
You're welcome.
And thank you for being a guest on Sounds of Health. I know we're going to have you back. So we appreciate you. We had come to the end of every episode, and I'm going to give this closing, but we record in the offices of Nutmeg Advisory Group. So we're really excited to be here. The energy and the culture that are in this building are a part of what makes what we're doing so great. So thank you for all of that.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate it. And it was fun to tell the story.
Awesome. Well, thank all of you out there for listening to Sounds of Health. That's a wrap on another episode brought to you by Nutmeg Insurance Advisors and recorded at the offices of Nutmeg Advisory Group. Sounds of Health is produced by Jason Carubia with music by Rob Hames. And I'm your host, as always, Dave MacNiven. Every week, we bring you stories that hopefully inspire, empower, and help you to upgrade your health. Please help us to get the word out about the show. Like, subscribe, leave a review. We love hearing from our listeners, and we hope that you will continue as an important part of our wellness community. Thanks for listening.